Sonoff has been really busy lately releasing a bunch of new devices. I have been sent 3 of these new devices for testing and reviewing. The 2 first devices we'll be having a look at are the SN-ZB 04P door and window sensor and the SN-ZB 03P motion sensor. Both of these devices are Zigbee 3.0 devices. What's exciting about these devices are not the capabilities that they have, but rather the promised battery life. Sonoff is claiming that the motion sensor has a battery life for up to 3 years on the included battery, and that the door and window sensor has a promised battery life of up to 5 years. The third product that Sonoff has sent me is, for me personally, the most exciting product. It's their Matter-compatible M5 wall switch. This wall switch can control up to 3 independent lighting groups or 3 electrical appliances. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. So now let's take a look at what you get in the box with the devices. Let's start with the contact sensor. So in the box you get the contact sensor itself, of course, and a small user manual. So the contact sensor itself and the magnet has double-sided tape on the back, both of them. And it's also on the back that you get the tamper alert switch. This is the contact that is able to sense whether or not the sensor has been tampered with. So when you mount this on the wall, the button will be pressed, and if it's removed, the button will be depressed. That's how it senses that something or someone has been tampering with the device. On the top is where you'll also find the reset button. So if you want to pair this sensor to a new ecosystem, you'll have to reset the device, and you'll do that by holding down the button on the top of the device for a few seconds. One thing I've noticed about this device is that if you do want to change the battery, you have to remove the cover on the bottom here, and that in itself is not too difficult. But the battery that is located inside of the sensor is tucked way in there. I have not been able to remove the battery. I have no idea how you do it, and I have no idea whether or not it's actually possible to do. I'm sure that it is, and that I just don't know how to do it. But no matter what I've tried, I just can't seem to get the battery out there. So if you do use this sensor, or you do buy a couple of these sensors, even though the battery life is around 3 to 5 years, you probably won't be able to replace the batteries once these run out. But maybe I've just overlooked something about how to change this battery. Because no matter what I've tried, I don't seem to be able to get it out. Other than that, there's not much to say about the device. It's well looking, it's well built, and it does what it's supposed to do. So next up, let's take a look at the motion sensor. In the box you get the motion sensor itself. This is clearly designed after the presence sensor that they released a few months ago. It has the same overall design and the same magnetic base as the presence sensor, and also the same dimensions. Other than that, you have a reset or pair button on the side of the device. The magnetic base itself that enables you to angle the sensor as you want to. If you do want to change the battery on this device, you have to twist off the bottom of the device, and then you will have to open up the compartment here. And from here you'll get access to the battery. And unlike the contact sensor, I have been able to change the battery on this. Not that I have needed to, because I haven't used this device for 3 years yet. But once I have used this device enough that the battery runs out, I will be able to change it. So that's nice. Again, just like the contact sensor, I think that Sonoff has really gotten serious about designing their sensors. Comparing this motion sensor to their motion sensors from the last few years. I think this is a very nice looking motion sensor, and I think this is one of the more nicest looking motion sensors out there. The base itself is also what you want to use to mount it to the wall or to the ceiling. You get 2 screw holes here that you can use to either screw the base onto the wall with, or you can use double-sided tape and stick it to the wall or the ceiling if you want to do that. In fact, in the box you also get a few screws that you can use to mount the device. They have also included double-sided M3 tape, so you will be able to stick it to whatever surface you want to. Other than that, you will get a user manual that tells you how to set up the device and how to pair it with the eWeLink app if you choose to set it up in the eWeLink app. And that's basically all you get in the box. Now the last device, the M3 wall switch here. For me personally, this is the most exciting device due to the inclusion of Matter compatibility in the device. So this is Matter over Wi-Fi, whereas the other sensors that we looked at were Zigbee 3.0. This should be able to communicate with all Matter controllers. But inside of the box, the first thing you'll notice is the Matter code. So Sonoff has included a sticker with the Matter code on it, which I think is a good thing to do. Beneath that, you'll find a user manual for the device itself. And inside the user manual, you'll find a diagram on how to connect the device in your electrical box. So the device itself, this is a fairly big switch, and most of the wall switches in Europe are probably the same place as this. The wall switches that we have here in Denmark are way smaller than this, so this won't actually fit inside of the wall here in my apartment. But in most of Europe, this should be about the same size as any other regular wall switch. It has 3 buttons here on the front, and all of them are very clicky. And they each have an indicator light on the front that indicates whether or not this device is activated or whether or not each of the relays connected to the buttons here are activated or not. On the back of the device, you'll find the Matter code as well. So it's great to see that Sonoff has actually printed the Matter code onto the device itself. So if you do lose the included Matter sticker, you will always have a backup in the form of a printed Matter code on the device. It's also here that you'll have to connect your wires with the screw terminals. So each of these screw terminals are marked with a live out on the first 3 screw terminals, and then a live in and a neutral in. Now this device does require a neutral wire. So if you don't have a neutral wire in the wall, you won't be able to connect this to your smart home system. You have the ability to connect 3 different either light sources or any other electrical appliances that you want to connect to it. Each of the outputs here have a maximum capacity of 2 amps each, with a total of 6 amps. So make sure that you don't connect anything that draws more than 2 amps. Sonoff does sell different versions of this wall switch. This is obviously the 3 relay wall switch, but you can also get one with 2 or only 1 relay built in. So if you only want to connect 1 light group to this device, you can buy one with only 1 switch in the front and 1 relay in the back. As the last thing in the box, you also get a couple of mounting screws that you'll be needing if you are going to mount this in the wall instead of your usual wall switch. This is only a on and off switch, so you're not able to dim your connected lights to this, so it's strictly on or off. But given the price, I think that this is an interesting device, and if it's easy to pair up with your smart home via Matter that we'll be going to do in a moment, I do think that it has the potential to be an interesting and cheap way of making your lights or your other electrical appliances smart. Whenever trying to pair the motion sensor and the contact sensor with SmartThings, I for some reason can't get them to pair with the SmartThings app. I have no idea whether or not this is a Zigbee 3.0 problem, a problem with the device themselves, or a Sonoff problem. I simply can't get them to communicate with the SmartThings app. It's a different story with the M5 smart switch. That I can connect just fine with SmartThings, but more on that later. So instead of trying to get these set up in SmartThings directly, I am going to try and pair them with the Sonoff iHost, and then from there get them set up in SmartThings. So if we move to the iHost interface here on my computer, this is the iHost interface, and the iHost is a Zigbee hub from Sonoff with Matter support, and it's through that Matter integration that we'll get these devices exposed to SmartThings. So first off, we have to add these to the iHost, and to do that I am going to search for a new Zigbee device. I'm going to hit pair, and then I'm going to reset the devices themselves. I'm going to start with the contact center, so I'm going to hold down the reset button until the light on the front of the device flashes, and it is flashing now. And I am at the same time going to reset and try to pair the the motion sensor. The hub should be able to pick up on more than one device at a time. So the same thing, I'm going to hold down the reset button and reset the device until it flashes. And it is flashing. And we can see that the iHost found the the contact sensor right away. I'm just going to rename that as contact sensor, and I'm going to add it to the living room, and I'm going to save it. And then right after that, the motion sensor was picked up. So I'm going to rename that motion sensor, and I'm also going to add that to the living room. And then I'm just going to quit the pairing process because I'm not going to pair the M5 with the iHost. I'm going to pair that directly with SmartThings, just so you can see that it's actually working with SmartThings natively. If I go to the living room, we can see that I have the motion sensor and the contact sensor added. And if I try to open the contact sensor is now listed as open. And if I close it, it's closed. One thing that we are not able to see from this screen is the tamper alert that is on the back of the device. For some reason, it's not exposed as a sensor here on the iHost, but I can still make use of this tamper alert or this tamper function. If I go to the scene section of the iHost and I create a new scene, the scene is an automation in the iHost system. I can add a if condition and select a smart device. The device is connected to the iHost, and then I can select the contact sensor that I just added. From here I can choose from the options that the sensor has, and this remove function right here at the top is the tamper alert. So if I choose the remove function as the thing that executes the automation and hit done, then whenever this contact sensor is either being pressed or depressed, the automation will run. So I can choose what this will do. At the moment, I don't have a lot of other devices to trigger this automation, so I can't really make anything happen from the iHost itself. But it is from here that you can turn on your lights if you have any lights connected to the iHost, or start an alarm from the iHost itself, because the iHost has a built-in speaker that you can trigger from automations. So for example, I could have the iHost play a sound like an alarm or a doorbell sound or whatever I wanted to do. If we go back and look at the sensor status screen on the iHost, we can see that the 20 millimeters of distance that this sensor is able to detect the magnet from, that Sonoff at least claims it is, seems to be about right. If I move them closer together, we can see that it's sensed as closed from this distance. If I move them further away, it's opened. So I would say the 20 millimeters is about right. And it's also very quick to react, almost instantly. So the contact sensor works as advertised. The motion sensor is a bit more interesting than just being a motion sensor. If we take a look at it, we can see that it has detected some motion, and that means that it's working basically. But if I go to the settings page of the motion sensor, I get the option to choose how often it has to be able to detect motion. Right now it's set at 60 seconds, but I can make it as little as 5 seconds. If I do that, it wants me to reset the device by pressing the button once, not reset it entirely, just pressing the button once to make it wake up and receive the new detection period delay, basically. So if I press it, it tells me that it was successful. So now whenever it detects motion, after 5 seconds, it will no longer detect that motion and will be ready to detect motion again. So if I wave my hand in front of the device now, it will sense motion. And then after 5 seconds, it should say no motion detected. So 5 seconds is pretty good. The lifetime of the battery that is advertised by Sonoff most likely isn't the 5-second delay time. I assume that when they advertise the 3-year lifetime of the battery, it's when the motion sensor is set to 60 seconds. I don't expect this to last 3 years on a battery with a 5-second sleep timer, basically. That would be insane if that was the case. So now that we've got the motion sensor and the contact sensor paired with the iHost, how do we get it into other systems like SmartThings or Google Home? Well, the iHost has a Matter Bridge function. That means that the devices connected to the iHost can be exposed to other smart home systems via Matter. This is a great way of having devices exposed to other systems than just Sonoff system. So if we first head over to the iHost interface over here on the computer and press the Matter option on the menu, we get a option to start the Matter Bridge function. If I hit start here, it tells me to prepare the devices and the apps that I want this device to be added to. If I hit the arrow up on the right, I can start pairing the smart home apps that I want paired with the iHost. Once I hit start pairing, I will get a Matter QR code displayed on the screen, and it's that Matter QR code that I have to scan with my other apps. So if I start the pairing process here, you can see that I have 15 minutes to complete pairing this Matter Bridge. So here I have my Samsung tablet that I'm going to use as the device to pair the iHost to SmartThings with. So if I go to add a device, I can say scan QR code, and then I get the option to scan the QR code that the iHost has generated for me. From here, the iHost will be added to SmartThings like any other Matter device. Once Samsung has registered your devices to the SmartThings app, they should appear in the SmartThings app. Here you can see that the Sonoff iHost is connected, and if you press on it, you can see all of the child devices connected to SmartThings via the iHost. And the 2 devices that we just connected to the iHost also shows up here. The contact sensor and the motion sensor both shows up, and it shows the status of the devices right away. If I wave my hand in front of the motion sensor, we should see it react in the SmartThings app. And it does. It's also fairly quick, even though it has to go from the sensor to the iHost and then via Matter to SmartThings. So it's quick to react, basically. The downside of doing it this way is that if I want to change the cooldown period from 5 seconds to a minute or vice versa, I'm not able to do it through the app here. You can see if I try to edit the device, all the options I get are to change the room that it's located in and the name of the device itself. So you have to do that through the iHost. Also, the battery percentage hasn't shown up yet. Usually it takes a few minutes to a few hours before that shows up, but it should show up as well. Also, if we take a look at the contact sensor, that also shows up correctly in SmartThings. So now both of these devices are connected to SmartThings via Matter through the iHost, which is a great way of getting more Zigbee devices connected to your other smart home systems. Because I have connected SmartThings to Google Home, these also automatically shows up in Google Home. So I can see them and their status in that app as well. If you look at the iHost screen that shows that SmartThings was added successfully, you also get an option to look at the supported devices, because not all device types are compatible with Matter. So if you click on those, you can see the devices that you've added to the iHost that are compatible with Matter. So if you have any other devices connected to the iHost that isn't Matter compatible and isn't being exposed to Matter, they won't show up on this list. So this is a great way to see which devices that you have connected to the iHost that will show up in other smart home platforms. If you add more devices to the iHost via a Zigbee device to the iHost, that device, if it is compatible, will automatically be exposed via Matter. So if you buy another motion sensor, for example, and add it to the iHost later, that should be exposed automatically to your other smart home systems by itself without you having to do anything. So that is the motion sensor and the contact sensor from Sonoff, and how you can add them to Sonoff's own ecosystem and how you can get those exposed to other smart home systems. Now let's take a look at the M5 gang switch here. I've connected up the M5 as the instruction tells me to do in the box. Right away, this should be in pairing mode, but if it's not, you'll have to press and hold the middle button for a few seconds and then pairing mode will commence. So I've opened up the SmartThings app here on my tablet and I've connected 2 bulbs to the gang switch. It has the option to connect 3 bulbs, but for some reason I thought I had 3 bulbs, but I only had 2 in hand. So this has the option to connect up to 3 different light sources, but for testing, I'm only connecting 2 of them. So I've reset the M5 gang switch just to be sure that it's in pairing mode, and you can see that it is by the blinking blue light here in the front. And then I'm just going to add a new device and scan the QR code that is supplied in the box with the device itself. And once pairing is complete, they'll show up in the SmartThings app as smart switches. So from the main screen, I should be able to control the lights and turn them on or off. And indeed I can. Now, as I said before, I haven't plugged anything into the third outlet, but if I had, I would also be able to control that. But turning it on and off makes a clicking sound, so the relay is being activated by the SmartThings app. I can of course also use the physical buttons on the front to activate the device or to turn on or off the lights. And as soon as I do that, the state is automatically being shown in the SmartThings app. So these two communicate with each other extremely fast. Now, one thing I don't really like about this device is the fact that it has a blue indicator light on the front. This light can be adjusted if you connect it to the Sonoff eWeLink app, and from there it can be turned on or off. But if you connect it via Matter to a smart home platform other than eWeLink's own app, you won't be able to control this light. So no matter what you do, this will always be on if you connect it via Matter to something like SmartThings. I would have liked Sonoff to have this indicator light being turned off by default, so that if you do connect this via Matter to a different platform, you won't be annoyed by the blue indicator light. If you have this mounted in the bedroom, for example, this light might be annoying to you if you are trying to sleep. It's not the brightest indicator light in the world, but it's still something to be aware of. You can also see that when I activate the other relays, the indicator lights turn to red, and they turn off when the relay is turned off as well. These indicator lights is also something you can't control if you are pairing this via Matter to another platform than eWeLink's own app. So you don't get a ton of customization with this smart switch if you connect it via Matter. But it does what it's supposed to do, and I have had no difficulties with adding this device to SmartThings or to Google Home directly, and I have had no dropouts of this device while testing it. And since I have SmartThings and Google Home connected to each other, I should automatically be able to control the smart switch here with my voice via Google Assistant. Turn on switch 1. Turn off switch 1. In the Google Home app, if you name these switches something different, you can control them individually with your voice. You can also set them up in the Google Home app to be something else than a light. So if you, for example, have one of the relays controlling your smart fan in the ceiling or your ceiling fan, you can have it show up as a fan in the app, and from there you can just say turn on the ceiling fan. But the voice control works, and it should work just the same way if you have Alexa. So what are my final thoughts on these products? When comparing the devices with the devices that Sonoff sold a few years ago, I personally think that they are way better designed than those a few years ago. The contact sensor is sleek, and it is, in my opinion, one of the better looking contact sensors out there. And the same thing goes with the motion sensor. It's a great device. It looks great, at least in my opinion. So I think the design of the products are good. I don't really like the fact that changing the battery in the contact sensor is so cumbersome. I'm aware that a 3 to 5 year battery life is a long time, but I don't really want to change my contact sensors every time they run out of power. I'm sure there is some way to change the battery without changing the entire contact sensor. I just weren't able to do it. So maybe you know something I don't, and if you do know how to change the battery without breaking the device, please let me know in the comments down below. The contact sensor and the motion sensor both does what it's supposed to do. The contact sensor senses whether or not a door or window is open or closed, and it does this very well. It reacts instantly, and I have not experienced any dropouts while testing this device. The same thing goes with the motion sensor. It has a great range, and the sensitivity is, in my opinion, very well or very good. It's a shame that the tamper function on the contact sensor isn't exposed through matter on the contact sensor. I don't think this is Sonoff's fault, as this is, at least as far as I know, not something that is possible to do via matter. But I do hope that if a future matter update is added to support this tamper function, that Sonoff will also update the device to expose this via matter. But as it stands right now, this will only be something that you can use if you are on the Sonoff ecosystem. Regarding the M5 wall switch, I also really like the device. And again, since this is native Matter, this will be compatible with almost all of your smart home systems. And Matter is, in my opinion, the most important smart home standard in a long time. I really like when products come with Matter. One thing I don't really like is that the indicator lights on the front of the device are always on. You can only turn them off or adjust them if you use Sonoff's own app. I know that controlling these indicator lights, it probably isn't a spec in the Matter standard, so they wouldn't have been able to do this with native Matter. But I would rather have them be off by default than having to turn them off. That way, if you set them up with anything else than Sonoff's own hubs, they would be off and wouldn't be so annoying if you place them in, for example, your bedroom where you don't want lights during the night. The device itself can be kind of big, which for most countries won't be a problem since their wall plates and since their electrical boxes in the walls are pretty big as well. But in some countries, especially the Nordic countries, this device is too big to be placed inside of a standard electrical box. If you live in a country where the electrical boxes are bigger than they are here in Denmark, then this won't be a problem for you. But for me personally, it is a problem. This is not Sonoff's fault as much as it is the fault of just Denmark having smaller electrical boxes than the rest of the world. But still, a smaller variant of the M5 would be good to see in the future for the countries that have small electrical boxes. I haven't encountered any problems with adding the device to SmartThings or to Google Home or to Sonoff's own hubs. So the connectivity of the M5 is, in my opinion and my experience, very good. and I haven't experienced any dropouts from the device. If you're looking into smartifying your lights or your appliances in a room, I would highly recommend looking at the M5 or some of the variants of the device from Sonoff. It's a device that's easy to pair and it's extremely easy to set up. They have a very good graphic in the instructions manual that tells you how to set it up. If you are interested in buying any of these devices, I have included affiliated links in the description of this video. If you buy them through the affiliate link, I will earn a small commission with no extra cost to you. So that's everything for now. So if you have any questions or any comments, please leave them below or send me a message and I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.